Hello everyone and welcome to this explainer. I'm really glad you're here. Today, we're diving into something that's absolutely crucial, but let's be honest, kind of flies under the radar for a lot of us. Practical Microsoft 365 security and governance. Now, we're looking specifically at how this whole world applies to small charities, community interest companies, care providers, and growing businesses right across the UK. So, if you're a trustee, maybe a charity manager, a registered care manager, or a business owner who isn't necessarily a tech expert, well, you're exactly who we made this for. You probably use Microsoft 365 literally every single day, right? But you probably don't have a massive IT department or a dedicated governance team sitting in the back office. In this explainer, we're going to look at how to build really safe, crystal clear, and evidence-based foundations for the tools you rely on.
Okay, let's dive right into this. I want to kick things off with a simple but honestly pretty crucial question. Do you know exactly who has access to what in your Microsoft 365 setup? Just take a quick second to think about that. Do you know for sure who can see that confidential HR folder? Or, who still has access to that old team project from 3, maybe 4 years ago? Look, for a lot of non-technical decision makers, the honest answer is usually a hesitant no, or at best, I think so. And hey, I want to reassure you right out of the gate here. If you're not entirely sure, you are absolutely not alone in that. It's a remarkably common reality for busy, growing organizations.
So to help us figure out exactly how to tackle this, here's our quick agenda for today. First up, the organic growth problem. 2, recognizing the hidden risks. Number 3, we'll look at a practical governance review. 4, clear and actionable outputs. And finally, number 5, your next practical steps.
All right, let's jump straight into section 1, the organic growth problem.
And this brilliantly illustrates the core issue. Systems like Microsoft 365 are fantastic, right? But they have this tendency to just grow completely organically. And usually that happens without any formal IT leadership steering the ship from day one. It creates this real tension at the heart of most small organizations. So on one hand, you've got your daily reliance. You're using these tools for literally everything. Collaboration, emails, storing vital operational documents. Microsoft 365 is essentially the digital heartbeat of your charity or business. But then, on the flip side, you have the governance reality. Because the system was so incredibly easy to set up and start using, it just sort of grew on its own. Fast forward a few years, and that organic growth leads to messy permissions, unclear admin roles, and just this tangled web of shared folders. The front end looks totally fine, but behind the scenes, the back end has become a bit of a maze.
The thing is, Microsoft 365 often grows organically, and it is so important to understand that this isn't a failure of leadership. It's not a sign of negligence. When a care provider or a small business is laser-focused on just delivering its core services, well, IT admin naturally takes a back seat. I mean, you add a user over here, you share a SharePoint folder over there to get a project done, and suddenly, boom, years have passed. So many organizations rely on it daily without knowing exactly who has access to what simply because the organization evolved way faster than its governance processes. It's a completely natural life cycle. Fixing it doesn't require panic, it just needs a bit of practical attention.
Which leads us nicely into section 2. Recognizing the hidden risks.
Now, what's really interesting when we look under the hood is that we find these incredibly common, everyday issues that non-technical leaders might not even realize are just sort of lingering in the background. We're talking about things like weak multi-factor authentication, or MFA, or, here's a classic, you have too many admins. People who are given top-level access just to fix a printer issue 3 years ago and nobody ever revoked it. You might have old accounts from past volunteers or staff just sitting there. You almost certainly have overshared OneDrive folders, unmanaged Teams channels gathering dust since 2021, and unclear SharePoint permissions that are relying on some pretty poor security defaults. Now, these aren't exotic, high-level cyber threats. They're really just administrative loose ends.
But, and this is key, those loose ends actually have real-world consequences. These common issues ultimately lead to sensitive information exposure and weak access control. If you're a charity handling donor data, or maybe a care provider dealing with sensitive patient records, that's a genuine operational risk. It also leads to operational confusion. You know that feeling when no one knows where the actual right version of a document lives? Exactly. And critically, it leads to poor evidence of governance. So when an auditor or a board of trustees or a regulator comes knocking and asks how your data is secured, having an organically grown, messy setup makes it really difficult to give them a confident, evidence-based answer.
So how do we fix it? That's section 3, a practical governance review.
So the crucial point I want to make here is that governance is about clarity. It's not about blame, and it's certainly not about unnecessary complexity. A practical governance review is absolutely not an exercise in pointing fingers at whoever happened to set up the IT 5 years ago. It is purely an evidence-based exercise to just get some clarity. You don't need highly complex, jargon-filled enterprise-grade solutions. You really just need to know what you have, where the gaps are, and what sensible everyday steps will actually close them.
And that brings us to this really important concept of operational resilience. We hear constant, honestly, sometimes exaggerated claims nowadays that artificial intelligence or automation is going to magically solve all our business problems. But think about it. If you introduce shiny new AI tech into an organically grown, messy environment where permissions are totally unclear, well, you're just going to automate that mess. True operational resilience means getting your basic house in order first. You need clear access control and safer collaboration foundations well before you even think about jumping on the next big technology trend.
Let's move along and see how this builds in the real world. When Adjona conducts a governance review, it follows 4 really logical, straightforward steps. Step 1. Review the M365 setup. This is just taking a calm, objective look under the hood. Step 2. Identify practical risks. This is where we find those extra admins and forgotten old accounts. Step 3. Highlight quick wins, like what can we fix in 5 minutes today to make you instantly safer. And Step 4. Produce a prioritized action plan. It's essentially a structured path to walk you right out of that organic mess and into a properly managed environment.
Let's look closer at what you actually get in Section 4. Clear and actionable outputs. Now, for non-technical leaders, a process is really only as good as its deliverables, right? The good news is you don't get some 100-page technical manual that's just going to gather dust on a shelf somewhere. Instead, you get a findings summary. That's a plain English, totally clear view of your current risks. You get risk priorities, telling you exactly what you need to fix first so you aren't overwhelmed. You get those quick wins for immediate, totally sensible improvements. And finally, governance recommendations for your long-term operational resilience. The whole approach is structured, it's professional, and most importantly, it is highly practical for busy leaders like you.
And the true value of this process? It's genuinely transformational. Just look at this before and after. Before the review, you've got this organic, messy growth that causes operational confusion and hides all sorts of cyber risks. But after the review and putting that action plan to work, you transition to a clear, governed environment characterized by real operational resilience. Basically, you go from just hoping your data is safe to actually knowing it is. And that provides a much safer, more secure foundation for your whole team to collaborate without any unnecessary worry.
Bringing us to our final part today, Section 5. Your next practical steps.
To sum this all up, a practical Microsoft 365 governance review provides non-technical leaders with exactly what they actually need. You get a completely clear view of current risks, highly practical priorities, sensible next steps, and crucially, evidenceable governance improvements. It just takes all the guesswork right out of the equation. It removes that low-level anxiety that, you might have some glaring security holes sitting there that you don't even know about. And it does all of this calmly, without throwing any legal or regulatory hype at you. It's about giving you the peace of mind you need to focus on what your charity or your business actually does best.
So ultimately, you kind of have to ask yourself, is your digital workspace currently a liability, or is it a resilient, solid foundation for your mission? Adjona Technology helps small organizations make Microsoft 365 safer, clearer, and easier to govern. Visit adjona.com to start a practical conversation.